Who was the mobster that supplied guns to the American Mafia? Weapons that carried out numerous gangland murders. Let's check it out. I'm James Gladwish and welcome to OC Shorts, bringing you detailed historical snapshots of the American Mafia and other organised crime. Feel free to subscribe if you like that sort of thing. Today, we're going to take a quick look at Frank Viserto Jr., a member of the infamous East Harlem Purple Gang, and a man who supplied vast amounts of weapons for the American Mafia. I sat down with mob historian Scott Dici, author of the excellent book Hitmen, a detailed account of the East Harlem Purple Gang, to discuss Frank Viserto Jr. So Scott, tell us a little bit about Frank Viserto Jr. For example, who was his father and which crime family were they kind of affiliated with?
So Frank Viserto Jr., he grows up or he's born and raised in East Harlem. His father, Frank Sr., he's identified as a member in some places of the Genovese family, other places in associates. I'm not 100% sure if he was ever made, but he definitely was very tied in with the Genovese crime family, especially their operations in East Harlem at the time. And Frank Jr. kind of starts showing up on the scene in the late 60s. And then, by the early 70s, he becomes a kind of a pivotal figure in the East Harlem Purple Gang.
So would you say he's one of the leading figures in the Purple Gang, along with like the Meldish brothers and the Prisco brothers? Did he have a good relationship with those guys?
Yeah, it's funny. He never worked real close with the Meldish brothers or the Priscos, but they all swam in the same circles. And Frank Viserto Jr.'s name definitely shows up in a lot of police reports, DA reports, as one of the leaders, kind of one of the lead guys for the East Harlem Purple Gang. So he's definitely, if not in terms of like power figure, certainly one of the most notable and known figures from the gang.
I mean, in your book, you mentioned, and we'll probably come on to this a bit later, that that there were some meetings that he had with Genovese mobster, the greatly feared John DiGilio. I mean, were they close, or was this more of a business relationship?
I think by the time like the mid to late 70s, some of the Purple Gang guys, excuse me, start becoming um, more closely affiliated with made members, whether it's the Genovese family or the Lucchese's, and the Genovese and Lucchese were the two probably the biggest families that the Purple Gang kind of gravitated towards. Um, so Frank Viserto Jr. starts, I wouldn't say necessarily working for John DiGilio, but working with John, especially in terms of supplying John and his crew with weapons.
Which brings us on to our next point. Can you tell us a little bit about how Frank Viserto Jr. kind of supplied, some of the crime families with weapons? Obviously, starting with this kind of shopping spree, as you call it, down in Florida.
Yeah, so the Purple Gang, like most New Yorkers, they go down to Florida for vacation. Frank sees an opportunity. Guns are a lot more readily available in Florida, so he starts buying up batches of guns in Florida and bringing them back to New York. 22, some shotguns. He's even caught with the personal pistol of a Hollywood, Florida police captain. So he starts bringing these guns back to New York in 1975, and then all of a sudden they start showing up in terms of the ballistics from these guns at the scenes of some murders like 76 to 79. They're kind of lumped together under the term the 22 caliber killers, but through ballistics, police are able to trace a lot of these guns back to these gun shops in Broward County.
So, I mean, it's interesting is who exactly did Viserto sell the guns to?
I don't have any like specific links about like the actual guy he sold
Yeah.
it to, but it definitely was the Genovese family. They were the guys that really made the most use of these weapons. And a lot of the people that were killed, let's use like Johnny Coca-Cola Lardiere, for example. The gun used in his killing is traced back to this batch that comes out of Florida. There's other guys like Frank Chin, kind of these kind of peripheral figures in the Genovese crime family, or kind of their broader pool of associates. And these guns, the FBI starts tracing these guns and finding that a lot of these are connected And some of them are actually the same gun that was used in a couple of these murders.
I mean, how many? And I think it's in your book. How many were kind of ballistically matched to the batch of guns that Frank Viserto Jr. bought up from Florida?
So there's definitely at least between 8 and 10 that the FBI identified murders that were definitively connected to each other through ballistics and through the guns that were brought up from Florida during this time period. And these were just the 22s. As you mentioned, there were other guns that they were bringing up, 45s, some shotguns, but the FBI were pretty quick to be able to start piecing this together.
I mean, and they were getting hold of the guns down in Florida through use of what, fake IDs and things like that. Was that the case?
Yeah, there were a couple guys. He would bring down some associates, some other guys from the Purple Gang that were using fake names, going to gun shows, these gun shops, like I mentioned, in Broward County, Fort Lauderdale area. Um, and there were some guns that they were just kind of buying themselves. So they were just whatever way they could amass these guns, and they were selling them at a huge profit back up in New York. So it became a pretty lucrative business venture for them.
And as you say, that we know of at least 8 to 10 murders were a direct result of the weapons that Frank Viserto supplied to around the Genovese family and other mobsters like that.
Absolutely.
I mean, so ultimately, what happened to Frank Viserto Jr.? He obviously, I know he went on trial for this.
Yeah, so he goes on trial in 77 for the guns. He gets arrested. Interestingly, during his trial, his father is shot in an attempted gangland hit in New York during this time period, and never could find out. They could never find out who shot him or what the real reason was. There were some thoughts going around that maybe it had to do with Frank's trial, but he was actually acquitted of the gun charge. But pretty soon, around the same time period, he gets indicted for narcotics.
Yeah.
One of the Purple Gang's other big money-making ventures was narcotics trafficking, both heroin and cocaine. And Viserto gets indicted, tried, and is convicted of narcotics violations. He gets sentenced to 15 years in prison in the late 1970s and spends about the next decade in federal prison.
I mean, do we know much about what his remaining criminal career was like after prison? Did he hook up with his old kind of colleagues or anything like that?
Once he gets out of prison in 88, there's nothing after that, really. He pretty much stays in Fort Lauderdale. He's out of the criminal sphere as far as I was able to find out.
Well, he was
I
never a made
actually
man, was he? So he could just
no, yeah, he was. Yeah, that's a good point. He was, a lot of the Purple Gang guys like, um,
Prisco and
yeah, Angelo Prisco. Oh, I'm drawing a blank. Mancuso, the
Daniel
new boss,
Leo and
Daniel Leo.
Michael
Yeah,
Mancuso and
yeah, Michael Mancuso. These guys become made. Frank was not made. I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that he was in prison, kind of during the time period where a lot of the guys like Prisco and stuff were being snapped up into the
yeah.
Genovese and Bonanno families. Um, but once, yeah, post 88, he just kind of fades from the scene. I spoke not too long ago to some kind of tangential family members who said he just, you know, wasn't really involved in anything anymore after that. And he passes away in 2016 in Fort Lauderdale.
In the comments below, let me know your thoughts on the topic covered in this video. I hope you found that interesting. Thanks for watching.